אז נתחיל בלהגיד שטקג'ים מוציאים כל אחד אחרת מאזור הנוחות שלו בדרכים מאוד מגוונות. אני באמת, יש לי קצת ניסיון בדיבור מול קהל, ועבורי זה עדיין היה מאוד מאתגר להכין את ההרצאה ולהתכונן לקראת המפגש, אבל בעצם החלטתי לאתגר את עצמי, כי למה לא להכניס את עצמי לטרלול, ולהעביר את ההרצאה באנגלית. וזה מה שנחשב יציאה מאזור הנוחות בשבילי. אז אני אעביר את ההרצאה באנגלית, השאלות בסוף יהיו בעברית, ויאללה, נתחיל. In the next 40 minutes, we will talk about scaling operations. I divided the presentation into 3 parts and will answer 3 questions today. The first question is, what is scaling operations? The second one is why scaling operations? And the biggest part will be how to do that. I've noticed this common issue in many organizations, the lack of differentiation between growth and scale. I see this as one of the main reasons that slow down businesses and their operations from taking their next step. The one thing that I really want to take out from this presentation is the ability to differentiate between growth and scale, and to understand that scaling is basically mindset. But before starting, let's start with a pop quiz. Raise your hands if you think your operation is working in scale. Is your operations ready for major spike in business or major scale? Is your systems are ready for multi-operational usage? If you didn't raise your hands or raise your hand 3 out of 3 questions, let me walk you through scaling operations. Now, as the company grows, the way we operate has to grow too. There is where the idea of scaling operations comes in. It's not just about doing more. It's about building smarter systems, cleaner processes, and stronger foundation that can carry the weight of growth. And I think for our field, it will be the next niche in business and revenue operations. So I'm super excited to dive in to what it really means to scale operations, not just in theory, but in practical, real-world way. But first, short recap about me. Hello, everyone. My name is Amir. I've worked in multiple companies, from having my own company to startups, growing companies, and mature companies. I've started my journey as sales rep, and then sales operations, that building processes from scratch, to project management, manager and operations in cybersecurity company, and now business and revenue operations at Kaltura. I serve as an operator, one of Kaltura's biggest team that work in major scale. They work mainly in low touch or no touch, and this is where I saw the huge impact of scaling operations. My position there as their operator is to help them to scale, build them, create for them scalable systems and infrastructures. And outside of work, I'm truly passionate about scaling. I applied it into everything that I do. To me, it means making the most out of my professional and personal life. I scale everything related to designing and distributing the yellow ribbons that's symbolizing the returning of the hostages or the hope for them to come back home. And I really love scaling every company I've been part of because I see the powerful impact it creates. And now let's go back to scaling operations. So let me just say the obvious. Every company wants to grow year over year. Growing means doing more customers, more work, more people, more segments, but more expenses to invest. But the real success lies into how that growth is achieved. So we need to ask ourselves, is your company growing or is it scaling? Scaling means doing more with less expenses. It's about building systems and processes that can handle the weight of the growth without adding complexity, expenses, teams, or additional chaos. So if I would just be very strict and straightforward here, growth meaning doing more with more business, more segments, more people, more teams, more products with more expenses. And scaling means doing more, but with less expenses. So here, as you might see, I'm a huge believer in scale. So today we will talk about scaling. Scaling operation is the art of expanding your capacity to acquire and serve more clients without overloading your team or budget. Scaling operation is what turns a good business into a resilient one. It's the difference between sprinting and building a machine that runs consistently, efficiently, and intelligently. And in today's business environment, the expectations are higher and the resources are often lower. So I think scaling isn't just about strategy, I think it's essential. So let's just jump to the second part, which is why scaling operation. And I will be very straightforward here. Three things, three top reasons: time, money, and excessive energy on non-relevant processes or systems. Or if I will be more specific here, I think scaling operation can help you in so many ways, but the main reason is multi-usage systems. We want to maximize the use of existing systems that we already have in our organization. The entire organization becomes familiar with the platform and turns into super users. They build dashboards, they build fields, filters, whatever they need. They become a super user, and of course, it eliminates the need from our team for additional training. We can maintain one source of truth with no data silos, which increases effectiveness, boosts team adoption, and enhance productivity. There is no dependency on external vendor or consultant hours because we already have this system and we can use it in so many ways. Second reason is what I just said about resilient business. We can build resilient business. What will happen when there will be a huge spike in business, huge spike in customers? We need to make sure the system will not crash. Scale systems can handle those spikes in volume and prevent crashes. So we need to build operations that are stable and reliable under pressure. Third reason is all about reuse systems and processes. It's similar to multi-usage systems, but it's quite different because reusing systems and successful processes force sharp and creative thinking about what works best for our teams and our organization and what doesn't, and how to leverage system wisely. With scale, we can reduce budget while doing more, thanks to smarter and more efficient use of resources every single time. Fourth reason, it's about potential for smart automation. We want to improve or replace existing processes with smarter, automated workflow that scale as we grow. Smart systems offer a large certification and holistic 360 view of the whole customer, and it will work across teams. If it's support, sales, CSM, marketing, finance, they all work, and we need to think about the smart automation. And of course, it will lead to significant cost reduction because fewer tools, less vendors dependencies, reduce manual work, reduce training, leading to meaningful cost saving. So let's go to the third most practical and the longest part of this presentation, which is how to do that. But before, a myth I don't really believe. I recently came across a common belief that companies grow through specific stages and that business operations evolve in parallel. To be on the same page, company stages are startups, growth, mature, and enterprise. Business operation stages are ad hoc, which is working in spreadsheets and Excel. It's very manual and inconsistent. The data is usually siloed or missing. The second stage is structured, where we can involve CRM. CRM is coming into the picture, and the processes are documented, but still basic. Automated, where CRM and BI working together. The processes triggered workflows and red flags maybe. The data is integrated into the system. And the last but not least, the last stage of business operation is predictive. And we all want to be there, right? It's CRM, BI, and AI, in addition to forecasting tool, which help us to predict churn, predict new logos, and anticipated trend. So if I go back to the myth, I heard that, for example, that early stage Startups are always will be in the ad hoc phase. Growth stage companies are in the structure phase, and so on and so forth. But I think there is no real correlation between company size or stage and business operation maturity. Scaling and building scalable systems and scalable operation isn't about how big your company is. Startup can build predictive operations, and enterprise can work in ad hoc operation stage. Scaling is about your mindset and the way you're working. You can build from scale from day one. And in this presentation, I will share real life example from company I've worked with and show how exactly scaling became a mindset, not just a phase for us. So now let's dive to the practical part. So I've decided and redefined the processes needed to build scalable operation from my knowledge and expertise. I want to show you 7 steps to scaling operations. But I have to say, as you will see later on, these steps are highly dynamic, and the order doesn't always follow a strategic sequence. Much of the work involved process transformation and mindset shift. As I just said, I will repeat this mantra for multiple times during the presentation, the mindset shift. So I will just show you and dive into the steps. So the first step is scoping questions, asking the right questions. The second stage, vision. We need to create the vision itself. Third stage is all about how we can do it. We dive into the practical part. And fourth step is standardization, mainly in large companies, but not only in larger companies. The next step is automation or any other execution. And then monitoring, and then documentation. And just to be more clear and more easy to understand, I divided into 3 sections, which is pre-process, during the process, and post the process. Okay, so we will start with the first step. The first step, we're in the pre-phase. We want to ask the right questions before scaling. Before kicking off a scaling initiative, it's essential to understand the context, format, and the mindset which we operate. I gave here 5 examples, but it can be many, many more. So let's just start with the first example. Bottlenecks and process efficiency. We want to identify recurring bottlenecks across department or systems and pinpoint the tasks that are most time-consuming, manual, repetitive, or inconsistent. We want to take those tasks that limit the team productivity and explore new steps or processes that could be streamlined or simplified. Second example is all about goals and trigger for change. Top down. We want to redefine processes in response to business changing. If it's new KPIs, new segment, new use cases, new vertical that require scaling. We want to understand the gap between current workflow and what's needed to support future growth. We want to align processes across team and departments around the idea of scale and detect low satisfaction rates or inefficiencies in existing processes as opportunity for redesign and scale. This is something that will come from the management or the leadership most of the cases. The third example is systems and workflow alignment. We want to identify misalignments or overlap between systems that could be consolidated, audit systems that are not built for scale or lack the flexibility to grow with the business. We want to check system limitation that impact accuracy, data flow, automation capabilities. So I'll just give here an example. If we have, let's say, we want to send notifications or messages to our customers, and we have the ability to use it within Salesforce, we will take this opportunity to use it within Salesforce rather than just purchase new tool that will do the same work for us, just to send the notifications or messages to our customers. Just for example, we want to consolidate tools. The next example is all about opportunity optimization. We want to find optimization opportunities analyzes tasks by time, effort to identify candidates for optimization, automation, or elimination, and explore potential cost saving by reducing system redundancy or minimizing resource waste. We want to look for ways to enhance data accuracy, visibility, and of course, decision-making speed. Last but not least is all about automation and repeatability. We want to eliminate repetitive manual steps by introducing automated alternatives. We want to design for long-term scalability with minimal human intervention. So this was the first part, just asking the right questions before just starting the process. The second stage is vision. Once we identified what we are aiming to scale, whether it's a system, process, bottleneck, or other operation challenge, it's time to focus on the vision behind the effort itself. First and foremost, we want to define our why. We want to clarify the vision. We want to define the why behind the initiative. And what is really the purpose of scaling this specific element? We want to clearly articulate what exactly we are scaling, whether it's a system, process, customer-based, MRR, user volume, or new segment, what we really want to scale here. We want to establish the main purpose that the scale initiative is meant to achieve and ensure all relevant stakeholders, we will talk about it in a minute, about the stakeholders, but we want to ensure that all relevant stakeholders are aligned on the intent, scope, and expected outcomes of the scaling effort. And of course, we all have KPIs, so we want to align on the KPIs and success metrics from the beginning to guide the process and measure impact. Once there is a new KPIs or strategic goal is set by leadership, we want to translate it into clear, measurable indicators and define how our performance will be measured, before, during, and after implementation. We want to make sure we have it all before the process itself. And of course, resources and maybe constraint if we have. So we want to evaluate available resources, if it's a time, budget, tool, and of course, our time. And we need to understand how much it will cost for us, for the company. Maybe the amount of dedicated work we need to invest in this project or in this process, in the scaling process, will not be profitable for us at the end. So we need to think about it in advance. And we want, of course, to identify if it's current constraint, if it's a human, technical, financial, or any other constraint that could impact execution. And of course, last but not least is deadline and timeline. We want to identify if there is any critical deadline connected to business milestone or operational dependencies, and decide whether to implement changes through a phased rollout or single transformation launch. We need to maybe launch it for Christmas or during the whole summer, so it makes there will be some changes in the process itself, in the execution itself. Okay, great. So now we're moving from the pre-step to during. This is the most important part because it is from vision to execution. We want to make it happen. Once we clarified what we're focusing on, the vision, we define the vision, the KPIs, the available resources, it's time to move into execution. Who and how we're going to do that. What system will we use? Who owns the system and its budget? So let's just start with the first point. Tools and system assessment. We want to identify which systems are best suited to support this scale initiative. We want to assess whether we already have system in place with similar functionality or overlapping usage. If there is no current system fits, we want to consider introducing a new tool, not only in edge cases. We want to reusing and expanding existing tools is often more efficient for us. And we want to check if there is a tool redundancy and make sure we are maximizing the value of existing platforms. So as I just said, if we want to send a notification and messages to the customer, we will rather search and investigate if we can do it in our existing tools. Maybe we have some tool that we are not using, or if it's where we are paying to outreach or Salesforce, that we can use it rather than just buying and purchase new tool. The second point is all about ownership and budget allocation. Decide which team will own the project and identify its stakeholders. I had it so many times that I think all of us, that we started to think about a process, but it wasn't ours. It wasn't sitting in the business operations team or in our team or in our responsibility. So we need to think about it in advance. In larger organization, if a department already works with certain system, like Marketo, for example, the team might own the implementation and receive the budget allocation accordingly. We need to think about it in advance. And we want to align responsibilities clearly to avoid gaps in accountability. If it's within our team, or defining, we want to define internal roles, or across teams. We want to coordinate with the Salesforce business applications or relevant groups, such as marketing, finance, or any other team that will be relevant. Last point is all about reuse and leverage processes. We want to audit existing processes to determine whether they can be scaled or adapted, rather than building from scratch. Relying on proven, stable processes increases the likelihood of success and reducing the risk of unexpected issues. If a process is already working, why changing it, right? I know it's a common phase in operations, but this is true, because if it's already working, let's work with it and not try to change or adapt it or reuse the existing processes. So after we understood how we're going to do that, let's just jump to standardization. I said it's mainly in larger teams, but also in startups and growing companies, from my experience. So before the execution itself, we want to have a shared vision in implementation approach. As part of the process, and before we're getting our heads dirty into the automation and the execution, we want to ensure that all teams across the organization share a common vision and clearly understand that the goal of this implementation is served to support them. It's really important because usually in larger organizations, we have so many sales teams that works completely different than the other. And within the team, each and every sales rep working differently. So we need to understand, they need to understand before, and we need to make sure that they understand that the implementation and what we are going to do for them is very valuable. We want to make sure that there is cross-team standardization, mainly in larger organization, I would say that, to create standardization across departments. Because when building a project for one team, we want to ensure that it's relevant and valuable for multiple teams, for all the teams, I would say. So we're not investing time and resources in something that won't scale and use for the other teams. If multiple departments are involved in the similar processes, we aim to address all of them and find the best approach. If they disagree, we need to find the best approach. Whether that's aligning on one method that one just suggests, or creating a standard that serves everyone. We want to make sure that there is strong alignment within the team. This is our responsibility as an operators. And last but not least, we're basically changing their process. So we are changing management. So we want to make sure that we plan a proper onboarding and handoff with everyone who will be using the new process from the very, very beginning. We talked about it in Maya's presentation, but basically it's super important. Why? We want to make sure everyone feels part of the process and contribute to building it. We want to drive higher adoption rates after we will implement the process. So we want to involve key users really early on in the process. We want to make sure that we are building the process they will actually use and not just spending the time. And we want to empower internal champions who can support the process throughout and just share with us what they really think about the process. So after all this, we're coming to the execution phase. I will say this. It can be any execution you would think. It can be through a strategy or building a new process. My favorite is automation, but it's not always be the best practice. Let me state this. And execution is the most practical part of the entire process. And I won't over-explain it because it's a whole process and whole topic by itself. But I will just say this. This is where the real scale happens. It's about designing the automation of the new process, physically building it, whether it's by our team or CRM team or any other relevant or system owner, if it's business application, whatever, and implementing it directly into the system. In a minute, I will give you an example about automation we've built. So we will talk about it in a very detailed way, but I would just say this right, like this is what I will say right now. And after all this work, after we touched in the pre and during phase, we're moving to the post phase. This is the final stage. And of course, it's all about monitoring and documentations. Let's just start with the monitoring. Track performance on monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually basis. What is working for you and your organization to ensure the new process is delivering the expected value. If we are using dashboards, do it. KPIs, do it. Feedback loops, whatever you need to do to make sure you are monitoring the process. And you want to identify if there is gaps or optimization opportunities that you need to change in the process itself. Second point that I just showed you, it's about training. We want to provide relevant, timely training for the existing and new team members to ensure smooth adoption. I will state the obvious, but I will just, it's important to say it. And documentation. Documentation is super important. We want to create clear, accessible documentation, if it's how-tos, process maps, frequent asked questions, videos, newsletter, what is working for you and your organization that empower teams to use the system independently. We all know that good documentation drives consistency and reduce support overhead. Wow, hell of a ride, okay? And now we get to the use case. I promised to share an example, real-life example, so here we are. We just finished going over the 7 steps in theory, and now it's time to put everything into practice. I'm going to walk you through a real use case from a company I work with, and through this example, you will get a clearer understanding of the steps we just covered. And now let's just jump to the real-life example. Okay, I want to show you through this example how someone with a growth strategy would act and how the scale strategy would act. So the use case is CRM department is expanding its roles and responsibilities to support new business segment. I will just explain it. The customer success management, which is the CSMs, is responsible for ensuring the customer gain ongoing value from the product itself and remain engaged over time. They need to build relationship and trust with the customer. If we go back to the beginning of the sales cycle, during the sales process, other teams are also involved. For example, SDRs conduct initial discovery calls with the qualified leads and pass them to the sales team to finalize deals. So, for example, the CSM team is expanding its scope behind existing customers, supporting additional revenue through new logos. Their previous goal is to prevent churn, and now there is a new goal. It's to prevent churn and bringing new logos and new business. So what will be the growth approach? The growth approach would say this: let's hire more people, right? Let's hire more CSMs. Let's hire more sales reps. Let's hire more SDRs. What will be the scale approach here? I will share with you right now. So a bit about the process. Scoping questions. We knew we had a new KPIs, and it was a top-down initiative to create because it was something that's set by the management. We knew we needed to change the existing manual process led by SDRs for discovery calls, transfer the hot leads into sequences, and schedule a sales meeting. We identified the systems that support the current process, and we realized it's too hard, it's too manual for us. We don't have the time or the budget to work in this way. And basically, the system simply didn't have the time to deal with it. They needed to do something super automatic because they had their own customers to handle, because they're CSM and they have a lot of customers to work with. Second stage, vision. We had a clear vision. We had the KPIs defined by the management. We had deadlines and timeline. We knew our budget, our available team, and what exactly we wanted to scale. And that's when we got to work. Our constraint was that we didn't have the sufficient resources for SDRs or new hires, and the team wasn't available. They was available only for go into the meetings with the leads, with the hot leads, and not just to do the discovery calls. And there was no budget, basically. The third step is how we built it. So once we understood that KPI were already defined by leadership, our goal was to reuse the process and the system, but in automated way and workflow. We wanted to reuse the system rather than introducing a new tool. That meant, of course, no additional budget, as I just mentioned before, reusing processes, multi-usage systems. What was needed for us is a new platform. So we basically took the existing system and process and built something automatically on top of it. I will just show you in a minute. Standardization, the fourth step. We realized the solution was specifically relevant to the team I work with and not for the other teams, because they have dedicated SDRs. So it's not relevant for them. So there was no need to implement cross teams standardization. And with that, we reached to the execution phase, and we chose automation. And I will just make sure that we cover all the 4 steps. And now we are going to talk about the automation, which is the biggest part here. So we built an automation based on marketing qualified leads to meeting set. It means that the automation will replace SDRs. SDRs for us will not be relevant because we will tackle the hot leads via automated communication and online proposition sent to the leads. We could catch the hot leads based on their intent. We took the ones that are ready for closing with a CSM. It was fully automated process. And what is the highest intent leads? We based on their marketing channel, and we took the ones that asked some questions in the chat bot or asked to meet with us. It was fully automated, as I just said. And the hottest leads set up a meeting via Calendly link. And basically, the CSM just sent a quick message just to make sure that they're going to see him if the meeting is canceled or not. The CSM went to a meeting to seal the deal, and that's all. 0 CSM participated in the process, 0 touch. The CSM in that time was responsible for their accounts, but also they needed to go and see those hottest leads. But this is it. It was a fully automated process. They didn't had to do anything about the lead themselves. So I'll just share with you what was the sales funnel before. So many leads and few marketing qualified leads. Why is that? Marketing qualified leads working and based on our scoring system. But this is it. No sales accepted, no meeting set, and of course, no opportunity or closed one. And I want to share with you the sales funnel right now. So the sales funnel right now is incredibly well in comparison to what it was before. So if I would talk about leads, We get some leads from marketing. The marketing qualified leads are higher because they are based on the scoring system plus the automation that we've built. So there is increase in marketing qualified leads. There is increase in sales accepted and meeting set because of the automation, because we talked to the hottest lead with the biggest intent. So there were sales accepted, and there is a meeting set with them. And of course, leading to more open opportunities and leading to more closed one and bringing more revenue to the company. We exceeded the performance and outperformed what we had anticipated in our KPIs. I remind you, we talked only about marketing qualified leads, 2 meeting sets, but we exceeded this KPI, which is incredible. So if I would just talk about results, the process was we saved 5 weekly hours per CSM, which is a lot, thanks to the automated work versus the manual work they needed to do. We had more than 100 meeting books, and the original KPI we needed to achieve, which is the meeting books, this is what we actually wanted to achieve. We exceeded amazingly well conversion rate, which is from marketing qualifying leads to sales. We exceeded, it was before 20% based on only on scoring the system, and now it's almost 50%, which is incredible because of the automation. From sales accepted to meeting set, it was 0. There was no meeting set, if you can recall, and now it's 41%. And from meeting set to open opportunity, it was 1 before because there was no opportunity or anything or any meetings. And now it's 36%, which is incredible. We are very close to end. And before we will move to the last slide, I will come back to this. Scaling is mindset. And it can be done in so many ways. Here I chose to take the automation route and reuse current system and fully automated it. But I have to say that it's not just about automation at all. You can build strategy. You can build process from scratch. It's not always about automation. Automation is my favorite because I really like to do automations, but it's not just it. And this is the last slide. We're about to wrap up the presentation. But before we finish, I would like to go back to where we started. One of the biggest challenges I see in organization is not knowing the difference between scale and growth. I hope you can do that right now and you can differentiate between them. It's a problem that impacts how the companies can build strong, scalable operations that can handle major shifts, whether it's spike in customers, entering new markets, or ongoing through internal changes. But more than anything, I would like you to take out from this presentation, it's all about scaling equals mindset. Scaling is a mindset. It can show up at any stage of building your operations, whether it's early stage startup or enterprise or mature companies. In the example I shared, we could easily chosen the growth route, right? We can added more resources, hire more people, but instead we choose to reuse existing systems and processes. We took the scale approach, and the decision saves us a lot of money, time, and excessive energy on non-relevant process or systems, as you just mentioned in my favorite slide here in this presentation. So next time you will facing a challenge at work, pause for a moment and put your scaling sunglasses. Don't just ask yourself how to solve the problem. Ask yourself, how can I solve it in a way that will still work when we double, triple, or pivot? How can I turn this moment into a building block for sustainable growth? Because scaling isn't about the process, it's a mindset from day one. And when you approach challenges with that mindset, you don't just fix things, you build systems that last. Thank you so much.